Hi, I'm Jeff, and today we'll be talking about critiques. So, what is a critique? A critique is a detailed analysis about something, like a report, a design concept, presentation, books, movies, or just about anything. So, learning how to critique effectively is an important skill to have, and you'll be asked to provide critique in all aspects of life. So, it's essential to know how to properly give feedback. Critique is often misinterpreted as a critical review where it feels like the audience is judging the work instead of giving helpful feedback. To most, being given criticism feels like being in a courtroom trial. However, we believe that criticism is harmful to both parties giving and receiving critique. This feedback process is all about communication. A proper critique creates dialogue between the presenter and the audience. Both parties should be expressing their thoughts and sharing insights to what is working, what isn't working, and how to improve. Critique ultimately consists of these three elements: communication, consensus, iteration. A proper critique tends to follow a certain type of framework. This framework establishes a productive approach so that the critiques can be run effectively and efficiently and produce useful results. A critique will have a presenter who presents the work, an audience who listens, observes, and asks questions, and lastly, a facilitator who takes notes on the feedback and keeps an eye on the time and agenda to keep the critique moving forward or end it when necessary. The key elements of critique. First, we should identify the idea or decision. Then, introduce the goals of the critique. What is the scope of the expected feedback and what the audience should be focused on? The audience should then be primed to investigate whether or not the idea or decision addresses the objective or best practice. The following is an example of a bad critique because of poor introduction.
Hey, I'd love to get your feedback on this. What do you think?
What is this? I'm not sure what I'm looking at. I guess it's good.
This is a conflict of expectations. The presenter needs to set the expectations of what stage in the process this is, and also why a certain element is being presented, such as if it is an exploration based from an insight. This is an example of introducing the objectives of the critique.
So, I'm exploring a feature that we think would be a game changer and make the app the new standard for mental wellness apps. But before I go too far with the designs, do you think that this layout or format works?
As we can see, the presenter has identified the idea, the decision, and the goal of the critique. We are focusing the audience on the feature and how it affects the app. This now allows the audience to focus on the choice of the design direction and the layout, as opposed to the visuals and the graphic design. For the audience, this guideline will help you navigate towards creating more useful feedback. First, what is the objective of this design? Next, what are the elements of design related to the objective? And then, are the elements effective in achieving the objective? Why and why not? Remember to look at the big picture and not just small details. Having nice pixels without a good idea is still useless. What is unhelpful feedback? Unhelpful feedback is a subjective opinion that is incomplete and doesn't address any issues pertaining to the subject matter. For example, a subjective opinion is telling the presenter that you dislike the work without explaining why you dislike it. Let's go back to the previous app example. The presenter did a great job framing the expectations of the critique and outlined the objectives. Remember, the presenter would like to examine the overall layout of the app instead of the finer details.
I don't really like it. You use too much red, and I hate the color red.
This response is very reactionary. And based on the specific audience's preference, it also comes off as a personal attack by targeting the presenter directly. It can be hard to hold off on initial reactions when giving feedback during a critique. Pause for a few moments to take a deep breath before giving feedback. Sometimes it can be easier to ask contextual questions to get a better idea of the state of things before delivering feedback. Asking why, what, and how questions will help you as the audience understand the presenter's thought process and experience throughout the project. This also helps the designer in being more comfortable when talking through their design decisions and thought processes.
The use of red is so bold here. What was the reasoning behind using red as a primary color for this app?
Being able to combine feedback with questions opens up the conversation and allows communication between the audience and the presenter. Here is a short list on some basic guidelines of how to give effective feedback. When giving feedback, filter yourself from giving personal opinions. Think about your response. See if your response is inquisitive or hostile. Ask questions. Don't assume anything. Talk about highlights as well. Don't just focus on the negative. Think about different perspectives. Be meta. Think about the small details and also about the bigger picture. You are not your design. It is hard, I know. Even if I tell you, the presenter, or usually the designer who's presenting, not to take things personally, you probably still will at some point. That is why you need to take control of the feedback and understand the root cause and figure out that it's not just an attack on your skills. When receiving feedback, take your praise and put it aside. Actively listen. In order to make progress, you need to listen to what isn't working and figure out how to make it work. Try to understand what the audience is saying. They may not be verbalizing their thoughts properly. Communication isn't easy, and sometimes people won't know how to say what they are thinking. Feel free to ask the audience questions to dig down to the root of their critique.
So, I'm exploring a feature that we think would be a game changer and make the app the new standard for mental wellness apps. But before I go too far with the designs, do you think that this layout or format works?
I don't really like it. You use too much red, and I hate the color red.
Can you tell me why?
Well, okay, maybe not hate. Hate is a strong word, but I dislike it.
Why?
It's pretty bold and kind of in your face. It doesn't match the image the company is trying to convey. Our company's branding is calm, inviting, and tranquil. The color red just doesn't fit it.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'll reconsider the color and make sure that it's aligned with the company's branding.
Sometimes critiques will be like this, where people will sound like they are attacking you. Take a deep breath and remember, you are not your work. Listen objectively. As we see in this example, the presenter didn't take offense from the hostile critique. Instead, they took the opportunity to dive deeper to get into the audience's rationale. Ask for critique as often as possible during the process. You don't want to realize that you're off track after you've already built everything. Engineers don't build buildings and then test afterwards to see whether or not the building will stand, so you shouldn't either. Remember, Critique is about the three elements: communication, consensus, iteration. You want to communicate why certain decisions are made, what objectives are and are not being met, and how to move forward so that the work can fulfill the objectives. Critiques are a great way to start a conversation about the work you are doing, ensuring that everyone is on the same page. Giving critique is an essential skill to have, as well as learning how to receive critique. While critiques are a cornerstone of the design process, it is not just for designers. Critiques are detailed analysis and assessments that can be applied to any field or any profession. Remember, critiques are all about communication, and communication skills are valuable when dealing with people in any type of situation. Communication skills are life skills. Start developing them sooner rather than later. That's all for now.